So it's three things: talent, hard work, and strategy. Those are the three things of where I'm at today.
Hello Sales Nation and welcome to the Salesman Podcast Live in partnership with HubSpot and recorded at the Leadership Summit in Chicago. On this episode we have the legend that is Morgan Ingram, and if you don't know Morgan and you are an SDR, I highly recommend you subscribe to his YouTube channel. Just pause what you're listening to right now, head over to YouTube or youtube.com, type in SDR Chronicles, and if you're an SDR, it is the best place to consume content because Morgan is in the trenches. He's doing it and he's just documenting his journey. And on today's show, we're diving into personal branding, a little bit of Morgan's journey, and then finding your truth, what that means and how it can help you have long-term success both in sales and business. Everything that we talk about is available in the show notes of this episode over at salesmanpodcast.com. With all that said, let's jump into today's show. Morgan, welcome back to the Salesman Podcast.
For sure, I'm happy to be back.
I'm glad to have you on, mate.
Yeah.
I want to start the show by kind of diving a little bit into your journey, and I'll link to the previous show in the show notes of this episode so everyone can follow along with us. And then we're going to come on to truths, motivation, intrinsic motivation, and that's all that good, juicy stuff that will be some practical takeaways. But when we first spoke, you were an SDR at that point, right?
Yeah, so I was a sales development representative for those that may not know what an SDR is. And so what essentially that job is reaching out to net new accounts, people that haven't heard of us before, and then just generating that into an opportunity for the account executive.
And where are you now?
So I'm at Terminus, still same company, but now I'm the sales development manager. So since the last time we've talked, I've been promoted, and now it's funny because I manage a team of 7 reps, and I have the most reps out of the entire organization. So it's split into half. So I have 7 and the other sales development manager has 6. And then we have a director who oversees that. So it's been a crazy journey because now I'm leading the people I was working with. So there's a bunch of stuff that's happened between then and now. And
we're not talking for that transition kind of 5 years, are we?
No.
You know, give us that time frame. And I'm smiling. I'm excited about this as well.
The time frame is really crazy. So basically it was a year. So 2015, I graduated from the University of Georgia with finance and sports management. I wanted to be a sports agent. That didn't happen. They told me how to go to law school, and I was like, no way. So I went to the local kind of tech hub called the Atlanta Tech Village. And so there I was like, I need to learn more about tech. I want to learn more about this industry. I know I can be really good at this. So I talked to a couple people. I got introduced to the company called Terminus. They just got funded. Cold called one of the sales leaders there, Tony Bennett. And then I got an opportunity there, and now I was working there. Was an SDR in January of 2016. And then for that entire year, I was an SDR. And then March or February 1, I got promoted. So after my 1 year, got promoted to sales development manager. And the crazy thing about that is that like all that happened within a year. Created the SDR Chronicles then as well, documented my journey. And it wasn't like
how much of this
process, right?
How much of this is obviously there's a talent here. You're not a numpty. You're not an idiot. Clearly, because
I would hope not.
You can put out as much content. You can hustle as hard as you can.
Yeah.
But there's an element of talent. So what percentage of your success so far is talent versus just hard work and hours, and how much of it is the fact that you've focused on personal brand, which is something that not everyone is doing?
So it's 3 things: talent, hard work, and strategy. Those are the 3 things of where I'm at today. And so everything I was just telling you, like there's a strategic move from as soon as I started as an SDR at Terminus. I knew that there were certain steps I had to take to get to where I was now.
I love it. And we're going to have you on in 12 months. We're going to have you on in 2 years.
And keep it going.
Heck knows where you're going to be at that point.
Who knows? You got to keep it rolling though.
So I love it. So yesterday we connected very briefly, and you mentioned truths.
Right.
This is something that you're focused on. I'm assuming as a manager now, this is something that you're drilling down into with the people that you're kind of coaching, supporting, trying to get the best out of. What do you mean by a truth? And I want to relate this back and give some practical steps of pulling out truths for the audience towards the end of the show. Yeah. What does a truth mean?
Yeah. So one of the big things that I talk about is truths, and it's something that's been really, really nudging me because I see a lot of individuals proclaiming that like I want to do this, but they haven't done any predication work to even get to what they're actually talking about. And so
what's an example of that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna dive into that. So the SDR Chronicles, Sales Development Rep Chronicles is what it essentially stands for. And the reason that it actually has grown and it's gone so far is because I actually have done the role of the SDR I was actually in it and I was documenting it and I was giving out tips so you could relate to me. But it would be childish if I said like, hey, I'm going to do the AE Chronicles, Account Executive Chronicles, and I'm going to tell you how to close. I'm going to tell you to do discovery. I'm going to tell you how to negotiate. That's not, I could be so fired up about it, but like I haven't done the role. So like that's not a truth. So like even if it did gain some steam, it wouldn't be truth and it would actually gain no validity and actually would go nowhere. So that's what I'm talking about. And I just see a lot of content now that people aren't actually speaking truths of what they do, because if I meet that person or I start talking to them, I realize that like they actually are not even doing what they're telling me. And so that at the end of the day, in the long run, will actually subsidize your value and your merit when you actually want to make a move, because people have already seen you as like a person who hasn't been giving valuable information that is their actual truth.
And I think it drills down even deeper than that. And there's, I'm not, and you will know who I'm thinking of as well when I say this, but I'm not going to call out anyone, and you're more than welcome to, but I don't think you're going to, Morgan. But there's plenty of people in the sales industry who, rightly or wrongly, and we can just perhaps dissect why they do this, but they put themselves across as a sales expert. They're doing this, the master of digital selling, which is clearly hot at the moment, account-based marketing, selling, and they've never done it. Versus what I'm doing, which is the same as what you're doing. I'm no sales expert. I was only ever pretty good at sales. I was never amazing. I was never in that top 10%. And so I'm happy to share that, and I'm happy to document it with my audience, and that progression of me learning from you and all the other experts that come on the show.
Right.
Why is it that people don't want to say, well, I'm average, pretty good, and document the process of them becoming amazing? Why is it that everyone wants to, with with social media allowing us to just have a title in our LinkedIn, in our Twitter, why do we all want to just become that expert instantly?
Yeah, that's a great question, Will. And the reason for that is because people are caring too much about the external, right? What happens is that people always are looking at externalities of like, oh, like I don't know what the perception of me is going to be if I do this or like I do that. And like you're always worrying about other people who in the first place aren't even really worried about you. Like actually no one really cares at the end of the day. So like, so the connotation that I always take is that like I genuinely just really don't care. Like whatever I post is like that's how I intrinsically feel, and if I feel good about it, I'm gonna post it as long as it's not something like rash and outlandish. But I know at the end of the day, I know that every single time I post something, everybody's watching, right? Because there's people who come up to me and they're like, hey, I watched their Chronicles. They've never liked anything. They've never talked to me. We're not even connected, but I see them in person and they're like, yeah, like I've actually watched this and like this is actually legit, right? So the thing is like people are always watching. So there's no reason to fake it, because even though you feel like you're actually like going somewhere, you're actually really not, because everyone behind your back is saying that like we already know this person isn't legit. We already know this person isn't actually bringing value, right? So you have to understand that. And so the connotation is that everyone wants to create this this aura of perception of like I'm the best, like I'm doing this, but just do the work, do the process, and people will come to you. Instead of pushing, you want that pull.
Why do people come to you? Why is there that magnetic element to it?
Me personally, or just in general?
You personally.
I would say overall, like me personally, the reason that certain things are happening the way it is because I'm very practical in what I'm saying, and everything that I'm telling you is something that I've done. So it's
real, right?
Yeah, it's real. So you can feel that. Like it's raw. Like if you ask me a question, I'm like, hey, how would you do this? I'm gonna tell you exactly how I did it because I did it, right? And if I don't know something, I will say like I actually just don't know that, and I'm not gonna give you false information, because I always see myself in the other person's shoes, as if like if someone told me something that was a lie, and they didn't actually do it, my value and trust in that person in the long run will diminish. And so I know that every single time I talk to someone, my value has to at least elevate every single time and basically create levels. So at the end of the day, like what's drawing is that like everything I'm saying is like me as a person. Like me on the video is me in person. Like it's not a fabrication, it's not an illusion. And that's what causes the magnetism, is that I'm real at every single facet of my life.
So it's one thing for us to say all this,
right?
And
of course.
It might sound a little bit preachy of just get it done, just hustle, put yourself out there. And it's cliche terms that come up over and over and over and over. But the cliche because a lot of them are true.
Right.
How do we do this? If you were sat there with one of your team, they wanted to build their personal brand within their organization, not even stepping out into building it in front of potential customers.
Right.
But they've got these blocks in their mindset and the blocks in their motivation of I don't want to look like a dick. I don't want to look like I'm being kind of like I'm pretending to be an expert. I want to be real about this. How would you coach someone over that?
Yeah, I think that's like one of the hardest things. The first question I ask, like I get these questions all the time, like I want to be a thought leader, like I want to be this guy, and people ask me that. I'm like, why? Why do you want that? And if it's just because you want to be known, then you're not going to go very far. You just aren't. You just aren't. You're gonna fizzle
What's a good
out.
why?
A good why is legacy. Or like, hey, like when I was like, there's a lot of reasons, and we'll dive into that more of like the whys, but a good one I hear is like, hey, my family gave me so much opportunity and I want to give back. That's awesome. Or like, hey, when I was growing up, like no one gave me anything, and like now I want to give back because like I didn't get that when I was growing up. That's awesome as well. Or it's like, hey, the stuff that I'm saying, like I tell people in one-on-one conversations, it changes their life. Like, okay, yeah, you need a megaphone for that. But if it's just because like, hey, I want a brand, so I walk around and I get all this cool stuff, like it's not deep enough for you to go, because you're not going to be able to get deep enough in your work to actually get to where you need to go. And so that's like the biggest disconnect for a lot of people, is that when they say they want to build a brand, it's like, why? Why do you actually want to do that? Do you want to do that because it's cool right now and everyone's doing it, or because it's in your strengths? Like for me, it's just in my strengths. This is just who I am. If I didn't have the strengths and the talent to do it, then I wouldn't be doing it. I'd be doing something else. But I know like this is the core of who I am, so like I'm obligated to do it. It's like a sense of duty.
How do we know when we are? So it's almost like an onion here of like layers of.
Yeah.
On the surface level, you've got,
Yeah.
If you've got hundreds of thousands of followers, if
Yeah.
you're the like up and coming Gary V, who I know we both kind of follow his content.
Love that guy.
If you're following that, you see him,
Yeah.
or whoever it is as your kind of idol, as the person you want
Right.
to replicate. That's one thing to say. Clearly he gets paid like ridiculous amounts of money for speaking gigs.
Of course.
He's super successful in what he's doing. His company's kind of
Yeah.
been built on the back of his reputation, his success, and his personal
Yeah.
brand. But that's not why he's doing it.
Right.
And then you go a layer deeper with him as an example, and it's the Jets. Then it's a layer deeper, and it's his legacy. And then there's probably layers deeper than that don't particularly come out
Exactly.
in
Like,
interviews.
you probably have to have a conversation about that. Probably dive a little bit deeper for sure.
How do we know? And I'm in this as well.
Yeah.
And the audience. How do we know when we've hit that point where that is our true truth, when that's the real thing versus what we kind of like surface layer think it is?
So I think surface level is like, I'm doing this for the money. I'm doing this because of this. Like it's very surface level things. But I think when you find it, when you decide you want to find it. And so what that means is that like when you actually sit down and be like, okay, like why am I actually doing this? And you like write down stuff that in your life that you've gone through that like that bothers you, or like why you're actually motivated. Like when you actually find out what that intrinsic motivation is and you find out that why, then you will actually go forward. The thing is that like people think it just like it comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh, this is my why. It's more so like sitting down and like actually reflecting for like a week. I mean, I think I reflected for 2 months where I actually didn't talk to anybody. No one really knows this. I didn't talk to anybody. And I was like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what's my why? Like, what are my strengths? Like, what are my weaknesses? And when I figured that out, I was like,
talk us through that process.
Yeah.
Because when you mean 2 months, were you literally, I mean literally,
I was
rather
hardcore.
metaphorically.
I'm a hardcore
sat in a
person.
room with a notebook, jotting down
Yeah.
what things mean to you.
100%. So, a lot of people really just don't know this. So after college, there was a period where like I had some time to figure out like, what do I want to do? Because like, when I go into whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to be locked in. So I took 2 months. I didn't talk to friends. I lived with my mom and dad at the time. So like I talked to them because I had to. They were living with them. But like I legitimately didn't hang out with anyone. I was like a hermit. And so, but what I did is that I was like watching a ton of videos. I was watching a ton of speeches. I was watching a ton of like successful people. I was writing down my strengths. I was writing down my weaknesses. I was writing down situations where like I blamed another person and realized that there was a flaw in something that I did, and I needed to figure out what that was so that I can know that weakness, so that maybe I can find other people who could help support that. So I just dug down deep into my life. And then what I found out is that like what actually truly makes me happy, like what could I see myself doing every single day that would make me actually really happy? So like what's the journey to get there, because that's not going to be overnight. And then what are my actual strengths that I need to execute on every single day to actually amplify my career and amplify the people around me. And so when I actually took that 2-month deep analysis, that's when I found out my why. That's when I found out all those things. And that's when it really elevated myself as a person. And I became, self-awareness. It just took it to a whole new level. And so like now I'm just super confident in myself because I just know. I know what I need to do. There's not, I don't really need motivation. I already know.
So how did all of that translate into becoming an SDR?
Right.
And then obviously now management, and then I'm assuming it's like up the corporate ladder from here.
Right.
How did SDR come out of the hat of all the potential opportunities?
Yeah.
And how did that work to your strengths?
So the biggest thing that I saw was, okay, like in an SDR role, like I see it as more so like the more the roles that I looked at, I saw that it was actually one of the hardest roles that you could ever do. And so my whole thing is that, like, let's do the hardest things first, and then let's gain a mental aptitude of toughness and a skill set that just becomes so honed and locked in that it takes you to that next level. And so that thought process was like, okay, if I do this, like, it's going to prepare me to, own something, be a strong leader, like, be a strong salesperson, like whatever I decided to do next, I was equipped because of this role. So it was more so like a boot camp or like the Navy SEALs training, like BUD/S training.
Yep.
I was like, I'm gonna go in here and like, this is gonna be tough. Like, this isn't gonna be glamorous. Like, I'm probably not gonna have that many like, fun things I'm gonna do, because this is gonna be a straight grind. However, because of this grind, I'm gonna prepare myself and basically leapfrog in front of a lot of people because I took that dip. So that's why the SDR role was important to me, because I was like, these skill sets that I'm learning are lifelong skills for the rest of my life. Like, I have them locked in. So
and
like,
what are they? Because I don't give the SDRs who listen enough kind of love. So what?
Yeah.
I know, because you're gonna kind of really empower them here.
Right.
What skills are they picking up as they're going through this grind where they're getting rejected constantly? They're on the phone, they're emailing.
Yeah.
What skills are they picking up that's going to be super useful for them?
Number one, the first video in the SDR Chronicles. The reason it's the first video, because it's like, if you don't understand the first video, the rest of the Chronicles will be irrelevant to you. So it's keep a steady mindset. If you can keep a steady mindset and you alleviate all emotions in business, you've already won. Like, you've really already won, because now, like, every decision, like, you're not going to get emotionally wrapped up and be like, oh, like, what do I do here about this? Or like, what about this guy? Or what about this girl? It's like, all right, calm. Like, this is what we need to do. And you just make it happen. Like, it's you have to keep steady when things are chaotic, because there are going to be high and lows in sales. There's going to be high and lows in life. But the more calm and steady you are, the better your decisions are going to be. The better decisions you're going to be, the more successful you'll be in the long run. So that's like number one. Like, you're going to have the most steady mindset, because this role is so tough mentally. It's going to prepare you to keep it steady.
Yep.
Number two is persistence. Like, a lot of people just straight up just aren't not going to want to talk to you. Like, there's thousands and thousands of SDRs calling that same prospect every single day. So it's going to teach you persistence to actually get in front of that person. And at the end of the day, you're going to need persistence to actually gain anything you want in life, right? Like, nothing's going to happen by you just making one phone call and be like, hey, this is so-and-so. And they're going to be like, oh, awesome. And you're going to get that opportunity. Like, nothing great is ever going to come from you just hanging out and chilling. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, but it comes from actually straight persistence and actually doing that grindstone of getting there. That's what the SDR role teaches. Another huge thing that it also teaches is the power of persuasion, which I think a lot of SDRs don't realize, that every single day you're persuading someone to take 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half out of their day. They don't know you at all, but within 50 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you've actually warped them in a way, or convinced them to take time with you, even though they have no idea who you are. And that is a skill set that, like, most people don't ever have. And the fact that you have that is powerful.
Yep.
So really think about, like, the power of persuasion, like the power of your mind, and the power of your skill set of actually having that charismatic tone to yourself to actually do that. And that's huge. And I think those are my three big things that at least I've taken away from the SDR role. There's a ton of other things, of course, like your salesmanship is going to go up, like your time management goes up. But those are the three things that you're going to learn that, like, in other roles, you're not going to learn as fast.
I think SDRs, I'm making a prediction here, because it's somewhat of a new role, but obviously it's been around in some forms for many years, but it's now hot, trendy, and companies are moving towards that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of CEOs, senior vice presidents of sales, VP of sales, director of sales that I interview on the show, the practitioners. A lot of them 20 years ago did door-to-door selling.
Yeah.
They picked up exactly the same skills as what you're describing there, of having a thick skin, being able to deal with rejection, being able to instantly influence someone from a positive place of get their attention, explain what you're about, and then make a decision and if it's the right fit for them. I think SDRs are the new door-to-door salespeople. I think in 20 years' time, there's going to be a whole load of senior sales leadership that are going to come from those SDR roles. And we're going to kind of hopefully be able to document the journey of yourself coming from that as well. Yeah. But I think that's would you say it's if you've got time, and I think we all have time, especially if you're a graduate, you're coming out of university. Would you say SDR roles, if you want to do anything in business, is probably a good place to start?
I think it's absolutely the best place to start. And I guess I'm coming from a biased perspective right now, but I actually have talked to a lot of people that are in sales leadership now, and they're like, the SDR role is the best place to start. And even CEOs are saying like, this is the best place to start, because at the end of the day, like when you start a company, like don't get it twisted, like you are an SDR, right? Like you're reaching out to people cold, like people are most likely probably going to reject you. So like you actually are an SDR, right? And in essence, like when you're reaching out to companies to get an interview, like you are an SDR. So like at the end of the day, like the SDR like techniques and the tactics are in your lifestyle almost every single day. So it actually would make sense to just actually do that role for a year and then move on to the next thing. Because at the end of the day, like you're not going to be a lifelong SDR. Like I'm not going to be like, hey, like I love being a sales development rep. I'm going to be there for 20 years. Like that's not going to happen, right? So, but the thing is, what is going to happen if you just take it seriously for a year, 14 months, like the dividends that's going to pay for you in the long run are crucial. So I believe it is one of the most important roles because of the 3 things I told you. And I even have a blog post on it where I dive into a little bit deeper on like, these are the things you're going to learn. And like, you're not going to really learn it anywhere else.
You wouldn't believe, and I won't name on the show, perhaps we can chat about it later if you're interested, the number of tech startup founders who listen to the show who have, since listening to it 12 months ago, have now had a shit ton of money being thrown at them from VCs. The businesses are now getting pretty big. There's one in particular here who are growing. Month-on-month growth is ridiculous. They're hiring. And they listen to the show for this very reason of they know the importance of being able to sell.
Right.
And that was what held them back. It wasn't the marketing, it wasn't the software, it wasn't the product. It was the fact that they're scared of getting on the phone and dealing with someone. So, I recommend SDR roles. I reckon just sales in general for anyone who's thinking about starting a company in the future. I think there's crazy value in that. And with that, Morgan, I've got one final question.
Yeah, for sure.
I ask everyone that comes on the show, you've answered it before, but I'm going to ask you it again. That is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give him to help him become better at selling?
Go, go, go. So what I mean by that is that like you got to go, right? In order to learn in sales, you have to basically go through a lot of opportunities and conversations to basically gain the wherewithal of the awareness of the stuff that you need to do. And I think that is where I think I found the most success, is by the more conversations I had, the more emails that I did, the more that I prospected, I started getting better. And it wasn't like, of course the lessons and the trainings and the videos are great, but you're not going to learn anything well unless you're actually in the weeds of it all. So I would say go, 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 as in like take opportunities to sell. Like, I used to sell like Pokemon cards, like stuff like that, stuff that gives you an opportunity to be a salesman. Like the more times that you just kind of get outside the box and try to generate revenue from nothing on a go, go, go mindset, the more that you're actually going to grow as a person and the better you are going to be as a salesperson.
Speaking my language, I had a shiny Mewtwo card that I sold for about 15 quid in high school.
I'm telling you, Pokemon cards are the truth. Back in the day, I had a business all around that, so it was fun.
Good, man. Well, with that, Morgan, tell us a little bit about the SDR Chronicles, where we can find it, and we'll link to all of the show notes as well. Yeah,
so the SDR Chronicles is a YouTube channel geared for sales development reps, also sales leaders. It's grown for motivation, tactics, and tips. It's on just the SDR Chronicles, so that will be shared. Of course, Will share that, but that's where it's at. And then you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, Morgan J. Ingram. So it's that simple.
Amazing stuff. Well, I'll link to all of that in the show notes to this episode at salesmanpodcast.com. Morgan, I want to thank you for your time and joining us again on the show.
For sure. It was fun.